G'day everyone, it's Turbo Tristan. Welcome back to the channel. Yes, we are working on a VTEC D16. And yes, we are making a race car. This has carbon fiber guards. It has a bucket seat. It has a steering wheel, carbon fiber whale dick intake. And we are ripping out the aircon. Why? Well, this engine is cooked and we are getting ready to get this car ready for a customer who's got a track day. So let's get this pulled out and let's start building, well, refreshing and building a new engine. So this is for a good buddy of mine, Curtis. We've worked on his CRX, we've worked on his ED, we've worked on a couple of his cars, normally just off camera stuff, but this one is for the D series Cup. So if you have any Honda that has a D series in it, so D15, D14, D13, D16, D17, whether it's a twin cam, you can go race in the D Series Cup. Now that's run by a guy called Jonathan Chow, who's in New South Wales. Him and all his buddies got together, started their own race series, which is only for D Series cars. So you can have any D Series. That's one of the main rules. It has to be a D Series. It's called the D Series Cup. If you want to find out more about it, check it out on Facebook and online. I'm here to build race cars for people, which is what we are doing for Curtis. Now this thing is getting pretty much the full works as far as an NAD series goes. We're doing new rings, bearings, head studs, refreshing the block, doing all the seals, all the gaskets, everything like that. Plus we have a ported head with all the valves done, all the guides done, stem seals done, springs, retainers, a high lift cam, adjustable cam gear, port matched headers, a link ECU, wideband, new plenum, everything's all been port matched. Possibly maybe doing a LSD, which is a definite must for a track car. And down the track later on a bigger radiator. But first we're just clearing out all the stuff that doesn't need to be here for a race car. Charcoal canister gone, aircon gone, all those lines gone. We're going to pull off all the brackets and things that we just don't need, just shedding all the weight that we don't need in here. And we're only going to keep the torque mounts. And I'm going to do some other tweaks later on. I'll show you what they will be soon. But let's get this out and we'll start tearing this down because I need to rebuild this and get this back in the car within a week because it's got to go to the track next week. Moving right along, it's the next day. The engine is out. I spent about 3 hours last night and I just disassembled everything, dropped the motor. This morning I came out and just pulled everything all apart. This is really the only bit that we're going to use. All of this is going to be replaced. Here is the old head, nothing that's uncommon. The carbon build-up and stuff on there. Looks to be like it's been refurbished at some point because this is suspiciously clean. All around the casting. So yeah, it's not bad, not as bad as I was expecting. I was expecting to see lots of soot and gunk and stuff in there, but this one's really, really nice. Inside the engine, everything seems good as well. All stock pistons. I can't see any visible cracks or anything on the tops of them, so hopefully once I pull them out, the ring lands and everything will all still be fine. And then get ready to start building it. This head is going to be going to someone else to be cleaned up and refreshed and put on another engine and just given new life. And I've got my work cut out for me, so I'm going to get to cleaning every single car that comes into my workshop whenever I do work on it. Especially if I've got to pull the engine out, they always get a full clean of everything, a full degrease. This one has been a rally car at some point in its life. All underneath the car is covered in red mud. So I've degreased underneath the car. I'm going to jack it up to the moon with my huge jack and get under there, lay on the ground and just blast all that mud and stuff off the underside of the car. And hopefully Curtis can keep it on the track and keep it clean after I've done that. Just wait until I show you all the goodies that are going in this engine and how schmick it is going to be. So with the disassembly complete, I have cleaned everything. I'll show you that in just a moment. And I've also set the ring gap. Very hard to find ring gap specs for a D series online or really anywhere for that matter. All the ring gap specs I could find were all for boosted D series and we're not boosting this one. So I went to an online calculator, race application, naturally aspirated engine with 75mm pistons, gave me all the formulas, told me what it should be. It came out at 0.014 at the top and 0.016 for the bottom ring. I went slightly looser than that. I went to 0.015 on the top and 0.017 on the bottom, but tight. A little bit of drag, just because I know Kurt likes to belt on his engine and it's going to get hot, and I don't want it to make too tight of a ring gap and then cause any other issues. So I went on slightly on the loose side, but still tight. So it's like 14.5. So 0.145 and 0.165. So not an exact science, but that's what I came up with, and I think we're going to be just fine. I've also got some plastic gauge here, which I'll be using to check the clearances for the bearings all the way through the motor. Then I can get the rotating assembly done and then get over to the new and exciting head, but I'll show you that later on. Let's go check out the engine. So this might shock a few of you, but we're outside. It's not in a hermetically sealed room. Basically, I've pressure washed and cleaned everything. We've cleaned 30 odd years worth of gunk out of this and carbon buildup. I've cleaned this out with just some Scotch-Brite pad, just to get any gunk off there. There was a lot of carbon actually between where the bearings were. Now just a light scuff to get that carbon off. It's not sandpaper, so don't worry about it. And I've still got to give this a clean before we put any bearings in. But yeah, that's all been cleaned. I've cleaned out all of the goop and oil and stuff from all of these, top and bottom. Same deal on the top. I've already honed the bores, which you might be able to see there. Don't worry about this rusty looking stuff for the minute. It's just because these are steel, they're raw steel, and they've been pressure washed a bunch of times and let dry. So a little bit of light oxidization. Once I get that ready and cleaned to put the pistons in, we'll be all sweet. Same thing over on the crank girdle. Air hose really helps with this. So I've taken out this Allen key bolt here, cleaned all of this out, brake cleaner, detergent, degreaser, everything, giving it a thorough clean. Same deal again with the Scotch-Brite pad just on there, just to clean these up. And again, they'll get cleaned before final assembly. Same deal with the crank. So Scotch-Brite pad, air hose through all of the holes, degreaser, detergent, everything to get all the carbon build-up off that and make it as true as we can for the plastic gauge tests later on. And I also did the same treatment with this little breather box at the back. It's going to just be drying for the next couple of days. Air pressure, water pressure, degreaser, detergent, brake cleaner, everything. Shake the crap out of it, get all those clumps of carbon and soot and oil sludge out of that. And I've stuck my finger in, scooped it all around, and she's nice and clean now. So just let that dry so there's no moisture or anything in there. Give it another blowout before I put it on, and grab a new O-ring so that doesn't drip down the back of the motor. And now it's going to be time for me to bring all that inside and start giving it a final clean for assembly and prep. And I'm just going to do some Scotch-Brite in here as well, clean all those up, and then a final clean, brake cleaner, all that sort of stuff. Paper towel, make sure there's no smudges on the paper towel before I put it all together. One exciting thing that I did, and I didn't video it, but I've got some photos which I'll drop in just a second. I've done a very, very light port here of the oil pump oil flow passage. I did that on this part here. Normally it's just a tiny little hole, so I've ported that, smoothed the path of resistance, so that's nice and smooth flowing into here. I did the same thing on this end, under there. Cleaned everything out, took out the pressure spring, and I made, and I'll sticker that just here, I made a little shim to give that slightly more tension on the spring. We're only talking an extra 2 millimeters at absolute most of shim on there. So it's not going to be super high pressure and blow your rear main seal out of the block. It's just the tiniest little bit more, just to give consistent, nice oil pressure. So yeah, that's all nice and cleaned up. A bit of Vaso on the inside, so it's got some pressure when we first start the car, and that's perfectly fine. New O-ring for there, new seals, everything like that, new front main seal, and we'll stick that on last before we put the timing belt on. Okay, so as you can see, the bottom end is all assembled now. We've got the rod bearings, the crank bearings, the thrust bearings, all installed. They're ACL branded bearings to the standard size. I've checked all the clearances with a plastic gauge, and they're all the same. So that is exactly what you want. Nice and even bearing clearances throughout the whole build. The next thing we're doing right now is I've just installed some ARP head studs. I've got one more to do. I just wanted to show you guys what they're like. So what I do is I use the ARP lube up the thread, and then slap that in there. And then with the Allen key, tighten it all the way down until it stops, and just give it a little squeeze, snug it up. Now we've got to put these in, and we need to get these stretched. So we're going to fully torque the head all the way to its maximum torque setting, and we're going to check the piston to valve clearance. Now this is the new head that was all machined by SSP Engineering, I think the shop's called. They have decked the head, they have port matched all the gaskets to the ports, and same on the manifolds of the headers and the intake manifold. And they've also added some oversized valves here for the intake ports. Sorry, for the exhaust ports. And looks like standard intake ports, but recut all the valves and make sure they all seal perfectly. We've got the valve guides, valve stem seals, everything's all been done. And when we flip the head over and it's on the engine, I'll show you all of the springs and retainers, and also the spicy cam gear we've got here. I don't want to flip this thing over and have this surface touching anything that's going to damage it at all. So for now, we'll look at that later. To do this test, all we're using is some $4 clay or plasticine from Spotlight. We're going to reuse the old head gasket. For now, it's already been crushed down, so it's at its lowest, slimmest point. This is its factory head gasket, and we're going to throw this on here, and I've put the clay into the little reliefs for the valve clearance. Now if this was a twin cam head, you'd have to fit all the timing belt or timing chain if it's a K series, and set all of that, and then crank the engine over so it rotates and goes through full range of motion to top dead center. But because this is a single cam, we don't have to do that, because it's just going to be spinning the cam on the crank here or onto the piston. So this is already set at top dead center. It's all the way flush with the top of the cylinder. And I'm going to put this on, torque it down, and then spin the cam over manually. And we're going to let these valves punch into this clay, and then we'll see how much it squishes. And then what we do is just cut a cross section, and we'll be able to measure the thickness of the clay and how far it is away from touching the piston. We want around about 1 millimeter of clearance. So that is with the valve fully open, so pushed out like this, and how far it is going to push out, and then it's going to cut into the relief of this clay here. You can see down there those little slots, that's what the valve goes into, and we've squished that up with the clay here. So I've done a lot on one and a little bit on the next one, and we're just going to go around until it cycles the full 4-stroke. So we're doing 2 jobs at once. We're stretching the head studs, and we're checking for piston to valve clearance. One other thing to mention, I've already cleaned this block several times and cleaned it within an inch of its life, painted it all up, sealed off all the surfaces before I did that. And Very important, I cleaned in the holes with brake cleaner, degreaser. I pressure washed, put the pressure washer in these holes and cleaned out any sludge or carbon or anything that was inside these holes. So we're getting maximum thread engagement. There's nothing inside here that's going to interfere with the torque or interfere with how much we tighten these down. So I'll tighten this one up, get the old head gasket on with the new head, and check that valve clearance. And then when I pull it off, I'll show you, once I pulled the head off and we do the cutaways, I'll show you what the clearance is. So due to the wind noise, I had to record this later on, but you can see here the clay isn't really touched by the valves, except for this one, which had the VTEC locked out on it. I used some VTEC pins and locked the VTEC so that we could get the maximum valve extension and lift with the big cam, and you can see it didn't really even touch. So we are very, very safe on this piston to valve clearance. So I'm just going to send it. And here we are. And here we are. Everything is all cleaned up. I've cleaned up all that clay. And here is the fresh OEM Honda head gasket from Elusive Racing, ready to put the head on for the final time. So the head's on, the cam's down, the cam gear's on, and the timing belt is on. And this is what we're going with. Kurt said to do race car shit, so we're doing race car shit. So I've gotten rid of all of this stuff and just kept the little piece that tells you when you're at top dead center or your timing mark, so when you put the timing light on it. He's also running an AEM adjustable cam gear. It's set at 0. He can adjust that later on. And here is the first look for you guys at the valves. So we've got Skunk 2 titanium valve springs, titanium retainers and keepers, and also uprated valve springs. So they're on there. I've also gone ahead and stuck the headers on. However, there were no manifold studs. So what I did is I went to my stock room and I grabbed some EXO Racing D-Series titanium exhaust studs and nuts, and we fitted those up because that looks amazing. Plus he needed them and they were here, so add that to his bill. ARP head studs are in, torqued down to spec. It's the next day, the sump is on, but first, before we check out all of that, check out this awesome valve cover that I painted. Just like all my builds, I paint them up so they look nice. This one was a surprise to Curtis. This is DNA paints, which I purchased from Complete Auto Paints in Springvale. And this is emerald to chocolate. So it flips from the really, really bright emerald metallic green, flips to a really dark chocolate, sort of Coca-Cola color almost. Check this out. So look how deep that pearl is, and you can sort of see as the shape changes around the valve cover, it goes chocolatey colored. Now, if we flip the camera down here, you can see that shape shift. And there we go again. So at this angle, we are fully chocolatey brown, and then around to the front and it flips back to green. I'm really stoked with that. I don't know what it is. I just really like looking at it. It looks amazing. It's all clear coated, really easy to do. If you want to know how to paint your valve covers like this, go back to a couple of years ago on my channel. I did a how to paint your valve cover like a pro video, and you guys have seen all my valve covers look amazing. Anyway, the engine is ready to go back in the car. We fitted in the 4x2x1 headers. These are an eBay header. They have been port matched to the port size and the gasket, so there's no steps or inconsistencies there. We've got the AEM cam gear on, everything's timed. One downside is we're using the stinky old D-Series power steering pump that leaks like a sieve everywhere. They all do. I don't think you can buy a rebuild kit for them, so it is what it is. And the stinky, crusty alternator. But I've done some little things, little Tristan touches, which is like paint up the little brackets and clean everything. We also are getting rid of these floppy wobbly mounts for some solid alloy ones with the thick urethane bush in there. They will make the car vibrate a lot and be noisy. However, it will stop the engine from flexing, which will help to put the torque to the ground, because all of the torque this thing's going to be making with that big stage 4 bad guys cam. The intake manifold is on. We've got some cleaned injectors. So these ones have been fully serviced and cleaned and tested. And again, port matched to the gasket and the manifold to the head. And the head's been cleaned up a little bit as well inside there. That was all done from SSP. They put their stamp on here. Gotten rid of that breather that goes from here to the whale dick. And I've just filter on the cover, and that water line that goes through there, I've just looped that back over so it's out of the way. Nice and neat. And yeah, I'm getting ready to take it off the stand and put the EXEDY flywheel and gearbox on and clutch on and get it back up in the car. Alrighty, so we're about to put the flywheel on. This is the EXEDY HF01. This is a lightweight flywheel. It's around 2.5 kilos lighter than the factory one. We weighed them on Curtis's channel. The factory one is 7.6 kilos and this one is 4.9 or something like that. So around about 5 kilos. So yeah, 2.5 kilos less. And that should make a big difference with free revving on the engine. It'll rev up and down quicker. It'll also not drop off in between gear changes, so it'll go rah and not go meh for the next gear. It should stay up. The momentum is already there. It's already spinning. It's not gonna, the rotational mass will slow down the spinning of the crank, whereas this will keep it up there and it'll just rev nicer. The downside to a lightened flywheel is it will labor the engine, and it'll actually start, like if you come to a hill, or if you're in a too lower of a gear, the revs won't actually pick up because there's not enough torque and momentum to push the revs up and to push the car along. So the weight of the car, the hill, the load, the torque, all those things will bring the revs back down again. So just something to be mindful of if it's a street application, but for a race car, which is what this is, and what that's going into, we need this. We need high revs, we need quick gear changes, we need the car not to drop off the revs in between gears, and that's what this will do. So I'm going to fit this up and then I'm going to give this a good clean, because it's got a little bit of the packaging oil on here, which stops it from rusting, because this is a bare metal machine surface. Here is that EXEDY lightweight flywheel installed and cleaned up and torqued to spec. How good does this thing look? Just sitting on the pallet, ready to go. It looks like a freaking motorbike engine, ready to rip. Alrighty, so the engine is in, and I'm just buttoning up everything I can from underneath the car before I drop the car back down again. Another mod Curtis has done is these billet solid with like rubber bushing torque mounts, and these are just to stop the engine rocking backwards and forwards. We've also put in a magnetic sump plug just to help when we're running in the engine. If there are any metal shavings anywhere, they're going to accumulate on the sump plug, and that's going to help that. And just for future wear and tear, all the metal definitely comes through. Any engines as they wear will get stuck on that sump. Really good upgrade for a high K engine, just to stop those metal shavings going into your bearings and ruining your motor. So they're on spoolup.com.au, check those out. One issue that we have with these eBay headers is I'm not sure which car they're designed to suit, but they do not fit here to the standard cat on this car. And we're going to run the O2 bung here, where factory we have this O2 bung. This is a narrow band sensor and it's only in one runner, cylinder 4. That's no good for tuning. These are 4 into 2 and then into 1 down here. And whilst it's better than standard, it's not the best design. And these are at a really poor angle, and then this is not even lining up. But the problem we're facing here now is if we run the wideband O2 bung, which is, we want it here, not up here, just so we can measure the fuel mixture out of all 4 cylinders as they merge together down here. Technically, we could put it there and we could just churn it off 1 cylinder, but that is not ideal for overall tuning and health of the motor. If there's an issue, if 3 cylinders are running lean and one's running rich, we're not going to get the answers that we want, and the computer's not going to be able to fix that up. Ideally, if we had one in every bank, then we could definitely tune it cylinder by cylinder. This is a D16, we're not that crazy. If we get the average of all the fuel mixtures down here, it's going to be better than just sampling one runner. So we're going to need to chop this off, modify it, A to fit here and B to fit the O2 sensor, because at the moment, if we stick that here, it's going to be about that tall. They're roughly around 10 centimeters tall. And it's just far too close to this. When this is spinning flat out at 9,000 RPM at the engine and whatever that road speed works out to be, this boot is going to swell and it's definitely going to hit on this O2 sensor. As you saw in the last clip, the exhaust didn't quite fit. So we spoke to Kurt again. He said, do race car shit on a budget. So what we've done is cut the headers exactly here where it goes from 4 into 2. And now it's into 1. Chopped it here, squished some stainless steel pipe to fit the oval shape there, and 2.5 inch down to a flex joint, flange, 2.5 inch back to the 2.5 inch hot dog. And then the rest of the exhaust is absolute crud. But we've made some improvements, and one thing which is really, really good for tuning is when the collectors merge here, within 30 centimeters, I've measured it 30 centimeters exactly, we've got the wideband O2 bung for the link ECU. All we've got to do, it comes with quite a bit of extra wire, we just got to tie that up out of the way so it doesn't get caught around the exhaust or the drive shaft. But yeah, flex joint, the old exhaust did not have one, and it's now 2.5 inch, so that should help us out, and we're ready for a first start. So here it is, all in the engine bay, all fitted up. Everything is now buttoned up and done, and as usual, couldn't help myself, replaced a few of the nuts and bolts with the zinc coated ones. But how good does that rocker cover look in the engine bay with the carbon fiber whale dick? Everything's all painted up silver, looking fresh and brand new. Not gonna lie, we have done a first start. We just started and ran it on the stock ECU rather than pin out the ECU so we could set the timing and check all of that. Ollie's jumped straight into setting up the link from TNT Garage, the plug and play unit, so that's all plugged in. We have the wideband O2 CAN Lambda all plugged in, that's plugged into the ECU. And we'll show you later on once it's calibrated, but there's also a CAN gauge which is in the interior. So on my car, I've got the IC7 screen from Haltech, and it shows me all the information and data. You can also get from Haltech, Link, and many other companies, a small 52mm gauge that's digital, and you can check your water temps and AFRs and different boost settings, whatever you want to put on that gauge, it can show you that data. So Curtis has gone for that option with the 50mm gauge that goes in the air vent, and once he's had it all fitted up, I'll show you what it looks like. But that's going to be like a mini digital dash that's showing us all the information on the Link ECU and how it's running and what it's measuring, so he can check on it while he's at the track. This side of things is done. All I need to do is put some gear oil in it. It's got some running in engine oil. And running in engine oil is like a mineral oil that helps, bed in all the rings and bearings and everything, get them bedded in. It's a little bit more abrasive, I guess you would say, than regular engine oil that's, slippery and coats everything. This one is just for bedding in. So you did about 1,000 kilometers on that, and then ditch that for some regular motor oil, and then you're ready to go to the track. I'm getting your reaction.
Oh, my reaction. I've seen some of the videos.
Seen the photos.
Seen the photos. And
in person.
I'm fucking blown away. Sorry, but that's so sick. How's it driving?
Drives good.
Yeah?
Yeah, we
so excited, man.
Went for a little cruise around. We had some small issues to iron out. It's, it's enough for you to do your run-in Ks.
Yep.
But it's by no means.
Oh man, I'm so blown away. It looks so good. Like, yeah, no, I'm absolutely pumped. Yeah, I couldn't ask for anything better.
Well, it's time to show you guys a first start for you at home of the big cam built D16. As with all of my builds, I'm not doing these builds just for wow factor and views on YouTube. These are customer cars, so I'm not going to film the first start and, you know, not have all my focus and attention on the customer's car. I want to make sure it's running absolutely perfectly before I rev it up, do anything to it, or, you know, take it for a drive. We have put a base map in the car. We have done some very light street tuning to make it not run so rich. We've played around with the launch control, the limiter, played around with the choppy idle features, so rotational idle, stuff like that. The car starts off the key, idles perfectly. We've bled it, we've done everything and taken it for a 10-minute drive. It's not quite a cold start. I've taken it out of the shed and it sat here for 2 minutes, but that was an hour ago, so now it's back to cold again. So let's do a cold start for you guys right now. Very lumpy idle, so we're loving that. It's exactly what you want if you put a cam in your car. The cam's for the power, but you really want the lopey sound, which is what we got. You can hear from here the intake sucking, because those valves are opening more, it's sucking in more air. Very loud induction noise. We've got the carbon fiber whale penis intake and a new set of headers. Headers are starting to golden up nicely. Look how much the car's shaking. All right, so because this is a race car, so far we haven't done any handling mods, and handling mods are the mods that are gonna help you stay on the racetrack and make the car go fast. You can have the best engine in the world, but if you don't have good tires, brakes, and suspension, you ain't going nowhere. So what we have is our buddies at WHITELINE. So my buddies at WHITELINE jumped on board for this project because I'm a YouTuber and Curtis is doing YouTube on his channel as well, Kanashimi Racing. So I'll put a link below for his channel as well if you want to see more on his car and other cars. Two things we're doing for now. There is a third thing which we'll be doing later on. The first thing is there's no control arms in this car. That's because they are down here. Now these are the standard ones. EGs have the same control arm design as a DC2 Integra or even a DC4. And that is this two-piece cast design, which is very strong, and it's in all the EG subframes. So really good arms. So this is how they normally go in the car. So what we'll be doing to this car is basically pulling these apart and adjusting the caster. Now, here's one I've prepared earlier, and you can see these shims in here, these spaces and the extra bolt kit provided. This is a very simple and easy mod to do and not very expensive. What you need to do is grab the kit from WHITELINE, has all the full instructions and everything in there. It shows you how many of each shim you need to achieve a certain amount of degrees of caster. Now we've gone with this one here, #5, which is the suggested starting point. And then I've just gone one extra because I know Kurt is an extreme kind of dude. So there's thicker ones and thinner ones, which you'll be able to see there. So it tells you how many of each you need. So 3.1 mil thick or 2 mil thick. And we've done that here. So two 3.1s on the inside, and we've got 6 2 millimeters on the outside. So that's the middle of the car, that's the outside of the car. So I'm gonna get the other one done and I'm gonna put that in the car. And if you're wondering what that is, caster is how far forward or back you can have negative and positive caster. We're going for positive caster, so forward. What that basically does is move the wheel forward like that, or negative is back. And the reason why we want to do that is by pushing the wheel forward, that gives us extra steering response and also better grip and handling. It gives us a wider track as well, or a longer track. If you take a look at Formula One cars or any touring car, you'll see the wheel is very close to this front arch here, and then there's a big gap behind that. It's because they're running a massive amount of caster forward to help them get the best steering and the best grip. It also helps with the balance of pushing the engine and all that weight back behind the wheels. Not that we're going that extreme like a full touring car, but we will be pushing that further forward just a little bit. So one step over their recommended starting point there from WHITELINE. The next thing I've gone ahead and done is fit up a WHITELINE sway bar. Now this is actually the biggest, fattest WHITELINE sway bar I've ever fitted on the rear of a Civic. This means this is going to be extremely responsive. It's going to turn in as best as absolute possible. Curtis is going to need to get some really grippy tires to stop this thing from oversteering, but this will help with eliminating the understeer and eliminating the body roll of the car. It might actually give us oversteer. It's that thick and that beefy, but this is future-proofing the car for later on down the track as it gets more and more serious and faster, and we maybe wants to put a different engine in it, bigger engine, more power, bigger wheels, wider wheels, whatever he wants to do, this will stay with him. Now, because this is so massive, I have also put it on the furthest out notch here for the sway bar links. And you can still even make it firmer by moving that back here and making this much stiffer again. So this kit comes with the bracket, the bushes, the sway bar, and the lock kit. And also we've got the adjustable links there. You'll notice they're not connected, and that is because we don't have the correct control arms. They're coming soon as well, so I'm not gonna do up bolts I don't need to. But yeah, there is that fitted. That is absolutely massive, this one. Huge, way bigger than the one I've got on my car. We are getting some new coilovers. These ones, all four corners are absolutely annihilated. They're all gone. There's no oil in any of them. The smallest bump, these things knock and carry on. They have definitely got their money's worth out of these because they are used up and gone. Well, you can't have a race car without suspension, and thankfully WHITELINE has jumped on board to sponsor this build with the front caster arm adjustment here. So we've got that done with the spacers. The next thing they've gone and helped us out with is the rear sway bar. So we have that here. This is the biggest one I've ever fitted on a car, and we've got the new WHITELINE end links. So these have just arrived fresh from the courier, and we've got to stick them in the car because we need all of these things to get this thing pumping at the track. Firstly, we're doing a front sway bar upgrade. We've already done the rear, you've just seen that. Now let's do the front. This is what we were working with beforehand, and this is the big boy that we've got now. So we've got all new bushes for the sway bar links. These are crusty, rusty, and dry. We're going to this big beefy setup, nice new joint, and all new urethane bushes. So absolutely mint there. We are going from a 21mm sway bar to a 27mm sway bar in the front, plus all the new hardware, and we've got the new bushes for here as well. Thanks to WHITELINE. WHITELINE are having a grip frenzy sale at the moment. It's 15% off site-wide, so go check it out to grab sway bars, caster kits, ball joints, anything like that, any bushes you need, all available at whiteline.com.au. And I've just pulled out the front and rear coilovers that were in this thing. It was on coilovers. Mind you, all of them are blown. There's no oil in them. They all knocked. They banged around. They were at all different ride heights. And here they are here. These are HSDs. Now, I haven't seen these since about 2004, 2005. These were the go-to China coilovers back in the day. They used to charge about 1,800 bucks for these, would you believe? Not that good, but everyone used to run them because they were the cheapest ones that anyone could really afford. Whomever fitted these used Thor's hammer and a breaker bar to tighten down all the nuts in the back. So much so I had to pull one apart, cut this in half so I could get my drill in there and chop the stud off. Take a look at the nut that was on top. I tried everything to bust it, break it, get it apart before, but it ended up me having to chop these blown shocks up and hack it off like that. But we managed to save the car, save all the holes and all the mounting points and get that out. But guys, tighten them up nice and tight, but not to the point where it's stripping and stretching the stud and just you'll never get it undone. Can't stress that enough. Just don't over tighten things. It doesn't help. Over tightening things doesn't make it better or stay on longer. Just remember that. Anyway, to replace these, you know it, yes, we've got some max peating rods, and yes, this is a budget build. This is in the D Series Cup. This is not going in Le Mans, but we've got the T7 coilovers. I've got these in my car. I put these in Ash's car, the red EG K-swap you just seen. He had no sway bars, no nothing in his car. We put the camber arms, front and rear, and the coilovers in his car. Transformed it. I gotta say, these handled amazingly. Part of it was the setup and the settings that I ran, and also he had some pretty crappy ones in there before. But this is what we're working with now. Upgraded spring rates, upgraded shock and dampeners. So what I'm gonna do is set the preload for track on this. I'm gonna set it a little bit firmer than I normally would. So instead of about 3 mil, I'm gonna go about 6 mil worth of preload. And then I'll set the ride heights up so it's even. I'll do center hub to guard measurements, hoping that the guards are straight. What I'll do before I put them in is I'll set them to around about that height, maybe about a centimeter higher, because it's going on track. We don't want this thing to bottom out. Low cars look cool. That's my go-to. I love a slammed car, but on track you need a little bit of, you need clearance and you need shock travel, wheel travel, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to give him a little bit of a higher ride height, and hopefully he leaves it about there. But this car is getting camber arms, control arms, all that sort of stuff in the future. So it's going to need a full wheel alignment before it gets to the track, but I'm going to get these set up and in for the run-in period. Let's just take a second to appreciate this new WHITELINE sway bar and hardware. Check this out. So not only do we have the WHITELINE caster adjusted lower control arms, but we've got the sway bar and we've got the urethane bushes and the new end links. Urethane bushes up here, all the way through. That is such a big, vast, fat sway bar. And then don't forget the one at the back. Biggest sway bar I've ever fitted on a Civic, 27 mil. What a beast. Coilovers are in. Once again, shout out to Max Peating Rods for always being there for us and helping us out on the channel and helping budget guys like myself and Kurt to get their cars to the track. Check this out. We've got the T7 coils in. I've preloaded them a little bit more than normally would, being that this is a track car. Here we are in the front, all set up. Now we probably are going to change these front and rear control arms before the next track day. This will all stay with the conversion kit, but just this lower arm, this bush, that inner bush will change. And same on the rear. The rear ones, we can't actually connect the rear sway bar because this doesn't actually bolt through there. So hopefully before this video is done, they arrive and we can fit them and get it fully sorted. But I'm going to stick the wheels on, stick it on the ground, see what it looks like. And then we've got one more mod to do, and it's an ECU mod. Alrighty, so the last mod we need to do on this car is a safety feature, which is to tell the ECU how much oil pressure the engine is running. And to do that, we're going to do away with the factory oil pressure gauge, which is a single pin, 1/8 NPT fitting. There's nothing wrong with these. However, this is just a slip-on connector and they do pop off all the time. If you have engine protection and things on your ECU, you want to use those features at the track, because if for any reason this pops off and doesn't see oil pressure, you want the engine to cut out so that it doesn't spin a bearing, throw a rod, or worse. So that's why oil pressure is super duper important, but you want to manage that with a proper motorsport connector. These are a Deutsch connector. They don't just pop off and fall off like this one does. And these are motorsport sensors. They're designed for high heat, high revving, high vibration applications, but to prevent any damage or anything to this is we're going to remote mount it. So what you need to do that is you need a 1/8 NPT fitting to a -3. We have those. Then we need stainless fitting on one end, stainless fitting on the other end, and then a -3 to 1/8 NPT conversion. And then you end up with that going on here. A short length of hose. You don't want this to be too long because you still want to get accurate oil pressure reading directly from the engine. So that is like 30 centimeters. And we're just going to mount this on the firewall away from heat and away from vibration. And to do that, we're going to use a rubber P-clamp. That's going to clamp around there, and it's basically like a shock absorber for the sensor. It's going to take up any vibrations. It's not going to be at the back of the motor, and you're not going to get drivetrain interference or anything like that. So all of these things are just going to go helping this sensor stay alive to keep the oil pressure accurate and the engine stay alive. So the more data you can get, the better. So I'm just going to stick this in the car now. I've already gone ahead and made it up. This is what it looks like. If anyone wants a kit like this, hit me up, spoolup.com.au. If you want to buy the fittings, they're on there. Just piece it together yourself. You can use any size hose, any size fitting, but it is a 1/8 NPT out of the block. For whatever reason, Hondas are all metric except for their oil pressure sensors. They're all 1/8 NPT. Anyway, let's get it in the car. So there's where it bolts to at the back of the engine, and it's just a short trip up to the firewall. When was the last time you saw a D-series this clean? So here it is all finished up with the sensor in, pressure sensor in, rubber mounted away from any shock or any vibrations in the engine bay. And I just used a little alloy standoff here and a nutsert to get that able, so you can plug it in and out and it's out of the road of everything. And if you're wondering about the ECU on this, this is a Link ECU. This is a plug and play option from TNT Garage. If you want to use any Link products, hit up Thomas Saar from TNT Garage. If you want Haltech products, hit me up, because that's what I know, that's what I'm familiar with. Thomas is a Link man, so yeah, check out him if you want any Link stuff. But that is it for this build. Crazy 1 week transformation. We've done the full suspension overhaul, which is a huge thank you to WHITELINE Suspension, Australian company, grip frenzy sale, 15% off site-wide this month. Won't last, jump on it. We've done front and rear sway bars. We've done front caster adjustments in this car. And then also special thank you to Max Beating Rods for the coilovers. We've done the T7 coilover upgrade on this. And I've done a full build on this D16. So we've done springs, retainers, we've done bearings, we've done head studs, we've done head gasket, we've done headers, we've modified the exhaust, we've painted everything, we've put the lightened flywheel on from EXEDY. So lightweight flywheel, quick revs. We've got the carbon fiber donkey intake. We've deleted any other stuff we don't need. We've got the big stage 4 cam and the adjustable cam gear. Everything is a go on this car. It's ready to get tuned, do some run-in Ks, get tuned and get dialed. One more thing that we've done is the can gauge. I sort of mentioned that. That is a Link can gauge inside the dash. Yeah, so it's ready to rock and roll. That's it for this build. If you love D-Series, stick around for plenty more on the channel. This is a D-Series Cup car. Hopefully now it's a contender. If you want any race car builds, hit me up. info@spoolup.com.au. Pretty proud of this one. See you in the next one. Cheers.